When you arrive in a foreign world, you must become a great general, a great sword saint, or a great magic mentor. Standing at the pinnacle of magic or martial arts, wielding 1,000 armies and horses, strategizing strategies, or even surpassing 10,000 people to dominate a country. Why can't we simply have a happy life? The foreign world is great, with green and pollution-free industries waiting to flourish. There are various races, including humans, tree humans, elves, dwarves, giants, dwarves, orcs, and elemental elves, all of which are novel and interesting. The foreign world is not good, with backward technology, backward food culture, and backward entertainment industry. So Su Jing thought that it would be a beautiful thing to make great progress in technology in the foreign world, to spread Chinese and foreign cuisine throughout the foreign continent, and to make various colorful entertainment cultures popular in the foreign continent. To be reborn, one must live a good life and not waste a happy life. Not happy now. It doesn't matter. Let me rebuild a happy life in another world. Number 11, no super YY, just talk about some happy things. Be cautious when entering. Keywords of the novel. Creating a happy life from a different realm with no pop-ups, creating a happy life from a different realm, download the complete collection of TXT, creating a happy life from a different realm, latest chapter reading. Book enthusiasts meet at the beginning of the dark god of the food in their fan fiction and fan essays. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The first meeting of the dark food god, by the dark moon dance, dead elf, stinky elf, rotten elf. Love, repay kindness with resentment, lack of quality, lack of integrity. A treaty was not fulfilled, and you left me and ran away. I curse you for becoming a stone without a mouth in your next life, unable to eat anything delicious. In the cocoon fire forest, Moon Dance was making a fuss. I am a lady, not rough. Yu Wu recited her catchphrase 3 times in a row before barely suppressing the anger that surged from her toes to the tip of her hair. It was not that Yu Wu had a bad temper, but rather that any elf who knew that a certain good elf who had lived for free for 100 years had only left a leaf with the words, finally free, would have an impulse to curse, let alone Yu Wu, a dark elf known for her fiery temper. Although it is said that a certain good elf raised Moon Dance, it cannot conceal the fact that Moon Dance has been responsible for all the household chores and has been searching for food to support a certain good elf in the dangerous Firefly Forest for 100 years of living together. In fact, a certain good elf was actually responsible for the baby life of Moon Dance in the first 10 years of the elf's life. However, the problem is that the baby life of the elf is composed of eating, sleeping, and eating, and these 10 years cannot be counted as any reward. So, Moon Dance ignored these 10 years directly. Yu Wu stared at the leaves leaving words, although she recited her Zen words fiercely, she still felt a surge of anger. With a heavy stomp of his foot, he couldn't help but clench his fist and scream, I can't bear it anymore. I'm so angry. The great god of contract, respond to me, defaulter, die. It was decided that in order to fulfill several unequal treaties signed by a certain good elf over the years due to food, Moon Dance decided to leave Firefly Forest and search for the treacherous one until she found a certain good elf, solidifying her beliefs. Moon Dance's belief. Violators, die. Moon Dance crushed the leaves in her hand, tidied up everything, and with a whimper. Night Light Leopard, Moon Dance's mount, best partner with dark elves, but rare in number, she rushed back to the vast continent of Aries. As soon as she walked, Yu Wu discovered a huge problem. She turned out to be a road fool. However, Hu Hu is very smart, and she must know the way. Yu Wu Qiao smiled, once again full of confidence in the future. So, I walked for almost half a month originally, the leopard would also get lost and say something. Yu Wu looked at her pretending to be innocent in front of her, wanting to cry. When Yu Wu packed up her things and confidently rushed into the Firefly Forest, she thought her road sickness had greatly improved. However, after leaving her familiar territory, Yu Wu was very frustrated and found that her road sickness symptoms seemed to be worsening. When Hu Hu ran forward with Yu Wu in full enthusiasm when she was completely lost in Yu Wu was quite pleased and entrusted the heavy burden of leaving the firefly forest to Hu Hu, but she knew go around, go around, go around. There's a river that looks very similar to the one we passed through last time. Is it the same? Why do these rivers look so similar? No matter what. Truly connected to crossing the river. There is a forest, but it looks similar to the several forests it has passed by. Even the small mountain next to it looks like the one we saw last time. Why hasn't anyone come to label these trees, mountains, rivers, and so on? Do you not know that there are many road fools in the world? It's really not kind. Yu Wu rode on Hu Hu and looked left and right, as if the scenery there was similar. Oh, my head is spinning so dizzy. Oh, it seems like there is a sound ahead. I wonder if it might be a legendary human. Yu Wu excitedly cast a phantom spell and a simple mirror spell on herself, and excitedly looked at it to see the results. Looking at my own image in mirror art, my skin has turned white, my ears have become shorter, my eyes have turned golden, and my pointed elf chin is gone. Hair doesn't need to change, the original one is good. Looking left and right at the mirror, it feels so strange however, it doesn't seem too unattractive to say that what appears in the mirror is a beautiful human little girl. Yu Wu pinched her plump cheeks under the illusion technique with satisfaction, picked up the cry of transforming into a kitten image using the transformation technique, and ran towards the direction of the human voice. Rita looked in surprise at the little girl who suddenly appeared in front of him, about 11 or 12 years old. Her hair was as dazzling as silver coins, her big eyes were shining with gold coins, and she was wearing a set made of invisible Warcraft skin, which seemed to be worth a lot of money. She was also holding a little cat in her hand. That finger seems to be carrying a legendary space ring. Very cute little girl. However, appearing in the Firefly Forest, although it is on the periphery, there is no guarantee that dangerous Warcraft will appear who is such an irresponsible adult. However, perhaps it was the noble woman who got separated from her entourage during hunting and sent her home, so there should be a reward, right? Looking at this unrecognizable equipment, if it were a young lady from the Baron's family, I would have made a fortune, or perhaps it could be a more noble young lady. Rita has now seen her beautiful future. After sending this noble young lady home, her family will politely give him 100 gold coins, or even 200. If this is more polite, she may even seek a position as a financial officer under her father's command, so she won't have to worry about it in her lifetime. Originally, she wanted to try her luck on the outskirts of the Firefly Forest, hunt small animals, and luckily pick up a small Warcraft core or something. Unexpectedly, such a large pie fell from the sky, and Rita fell silent in her own YY. Yu Wu looked in front of her and was clearly drooling in YY, resembling a human male creature. According to the description of a certain good elf, it should be a human. Yu Wu shouted, "Hello," 3 times in mainland common language before interrupting Rita's YY. Rita regained his composure and wiped the corners of his mouth, putting on his most amiable smile as he cautiously asked, "Your noble lady, have you and your entourage gone missing? Do you want me to take you home?" Yu Wu looked at this human male with a lewd smile and was grateful that he had found a reason to enter human society. She couldn't help but follow his words and said, I did get lost with my follower. I hope to get your help and send me to the nearest person's city, where my follower will pay you a lot of compensation." Upon hearing this, Rita's face turned red with excitement and he said, "I'm willing to help you, noble lady. Please come with me." Excitedly, he walked towards the town of Lombard, which is closest to the Firefly Forest. Rita lifted his head and walked into Lomba town with a red face. The guards joked kindly, "Hi, Rita, why are you so happy today? You found the magic core. I was even luckier than picking up the magic core. I met a lost noblewoman who had lost her and her followers. I sent her back to town and she would pay me a lot of money." Rita shouted. The guard asked suspiciously, "Miss Noble, where are you?" You probably haven't encountered a dead soul, have you? You play as a Miss Noble in the woods all day long. With such a trivial matter, why should I be a guard? I go to the woods every day to wait for the Miss Noble in distress to be saved. Rita angrily replied, "It's right behind me. Are you blind?" Looking back, at some point, the young lady who had been following her all along disappeared. Did you really encounter a dead soul? Rita scratched his head in confusion. Firefly snack shop. Recruiting chefs. Face discussion. Yu Wu looked at the door in front of her, turned around to look at the bone-thin and bone-like howling that had been wandering for 3 months, and then touched Mi's 1-cent pocket to open the door to the Firefly snack shop. "Excuse me, is it here to recruit a chef?" Yu Wu looked at the entire hall and whispered to the crowd drinking. Lucina quickly ran up to Yue Wu and asked, "Little girl, are you looking to apply?" Xiaojing happened to be out. "Why don't you make a specialty snack for everyone to taste first?" Lucina was excited. After posting the job for 3 months, someone finally applied for the position of chef. "No problem, where is the kitchen?" Yu Wu hurriedly said. Lucina hesitated and said, "We make snacks here in front of everyone. Can you just make them in the lobby?" "No problem." Yu Wu confidently replied. With a cold sweat in their minds, everyone looked at the seemingly friendly little girl who had come to apply for the job. Since Su Zheng arrived 6 months ago, everyone who had not experienced dizziness for a long time felt the same feeling of dizziness again when they looked at her. It's not that the little girl is sitting obediently by her side, watching the creatures like cats. The creatures that look like leopards make people dizzy. Anyway, I'm pretty used to watching Lulu. No matter how many monsters there are, it doesn't matter. But it's her way of making snacks. Looking at the snacks she makes, they have all the colors, flavors, and shapes. However, the taste is fragrant, but looking back at the seasoning she used when cooking, there's no one who doesn't want to give it a try. Angel secretly listed several things he knew in his heart. Snakeberry, a precious ingredient used by thieves to poison daggers. The egg of the dark blue spider, although ranked 9th among the top 10 highly venomous creatures on the continent, is said to be 10 times more toxic. Bai Chao Ru, with an ordinary name and appearance, has the highest number of abnormal deaths in mainland China due to accidental ingestion and poisoning every year. Look at the red abnormal small fruit and those strange things, with such a bright red color. Sigh. I'm afraid it's not a good person either. It's all highly toxic. Can this thing be eaten? The multiple stacking of highly toxic ingredients, even if you want to poison a dragon, there's no need for such exaggerated cutting. Is this little girl really a chef? It shouldn't be a pharmacist from any school who came out to experience. Wow, what's so fragrant? Give it a try. Su Zheng hurriedly ran in from outside the door, but everyone didn't have time to stop him. They watched as Su Zheng grabbed an egg of a dark blue spider and threw it into their mouth, petrifying everyone. "Well, eat well." Su Zheng took a few big bites and then picked up another one and threw it into his mouth to chew on. The taste is really good. Everyone looked at Su Zheng with convulsions on their faces. After eating this thing, they were not poisoned to death, and if everything was okay, miraculous. After savoring the scent for a while, Su Zheng regained his composure and looked at his moon dance beside him with big, eager eyes. "Did you do it? Are you here to apply?" he asked. Yu Wu quickly nodded and said, I made it, but unfortunately, the ingredients are not complete today. If we add blood lotus seeds, prickly fish bones, that would be the most delicious." The people who came to their senses continued to petrify after swallowing his last snack. Su Zheng quickly took out the employment contract he had drafted for 3 months but still hadn't used, saying, "Sign it for 10 years. Everyone continued to petrify. Preface. Death is also a kind of freedom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A pristine white ward with pristine walls, a pure white veil, a pure white table, chair, and bed, white is even more desolate than lonely. The bleak color in the hospital room, white, became the main eye color that Su Jing could see. Su Jing rolled his eyes, the only movable part of his body, looking at the decorations and people in the hospital room. For a whole 147 years, the days of lying down like a mummy have finally come to an end. For the impending death, Su Jing had no fear in his heart, but more anticipation and excitement. Death may be scary for others, but for Su Jing, it is another way to gain oneself. The birds in the cage yearned for freedom, and Su Jing also wanted to break free from the prison of the ward. Even through death, Su Jing was content with it. Finally. I'm about to be free. The stiff muscles made Su Jingfa smile, but the old facial muscles couldn't suppress the blush. Mr. Su, have you really thought about it? The young and beautiful nurse beside the bed had tears in her eyes, but she tried her best to smile at Su Jing. The great significance of the old man lying in bed to the entire interstellar alliance is not clearer to anyone than the people in the room now. Although she strongly opposes the old man's decision in her heart, when the old man truly makes a decision, she can only cooperate and bless. Su Jingfa nodded, his consciousness displayed directly on the stereoscopic display screen of the optical brain through the buried wires in his brain. Yes. The bright red words displayed Su Jing's determination and urgency. With a tremble in her hand, the medical record fell onto the bed. The nurse hurriedly grabbed it back and used the opportunity to wipe away the tears from her eyes, nodding to the elderly man dressed as a soldier next to her. The old man's eyes turned red and he stepped forward, his mouth chattering, but he didn't say anything. Consciously reaching out and touching Su Jing's bark-like skin, he shrank back like an electric shock, and the old man's eyes were even more flushed. Taking off his hat, he respectfully saluted the military, and the old man half knelt down and said in a deep voice, "Su Jing, my friend, on behalf of the entire interstellar alliance, I declare your honor and power." Wei Shen, controlling the surging grief, the old man read out. Su Jing, a native of western Sichuan, was born in 3048 in the interstellar year. He graduated from the Central Star Military School at the age of 10 in 3058, with excellent grades and complete cultivation of the heavenly way. In 3060, the parallel space barrier was broken, and the alien space invaded, causing the interstellar alliance to retreat step by step. In the midst of life and death, Su Jing gave up his pursuit of the heavenly way, gave up his freedom and ideals, transformed his whole body's cultivation into energy, forcibly combined with the optical brain, and successfully became the first generation of intelligent brain. He led the entire interstellar alliance to repel foreign invasion, lasting 144 years after the war. Over the past 3 years, Su Jing devoted himself to his studies and became the overall planner and commander of the entire Star Alliance's recovery work. In just 3 years, he built the Star Alliance even more prosperous. His achievements and glory are the first person in the entire Star Alliance. Billions of people admire him taking a deep breath and suppressing the thoughts of thousands of soldiers and horses. The old man continued to read, "Today, at Su Jing's request, we will carry out euthanasia for him, and..." The old man finally couldn't help but shed tears, "Give him one more freedom. This is what billions of interstellar people owe him." After the difficult reading was completed, the old man threw the chip in his hand onto the ground and stomped on it with force. He was furious and said, "Damn it. Those who have contributed everything can only end up in death like this. I don't agree, I don't agree." He turned to look at Su Jing, tears streaming down his face. "Su Jing, my friend, can't you wait a few more years? With such advanced technology, it's uncertain that one day you will be able to get rid of this kind of immortality. Moreover, you must cultivate the heavenly way and transcend life and death." He knew that Su Jing, relying on his cultivation, forcibly broke the barrier between species. Barrier, forced integration of human and machine, the foundation of the heavenly way has been broken, and the old man still speaks eloquently. Su Jing looked at him quietly. The two of them got to know each other in a fight at the age of 4. They watched their friends step by step, from soldiers to generals, and then from generals to interstellar alliance commanders, from sparse yellow hair to white hair, for a total of 147 years. Looking at him quietly like this, Su Zheng conveyed his thoughts with his eyes. Can we start over with a whole 147 years of life? Growth, work, love, marriage, starting a family, having children, raising the next generation, watching life continue from the next generation to complete the entire life, can all of these be restarted? Borrowing a respirator and nutrient solution is not called living. Observing life from the internet and combining human brain and light bulb thinking is not called life. What is lost is impossible to come back. It's better to give him freedom than to live incognito and be immortal. For my current situation, death is a liberation, a freedom. Su Zheng's gaze made the old man understand Su Zheng's thoughts. He actually always understood and knew. However, he couldn't bear to part with this old friend who could not speak or move, but had devoted everything to the people of the entire interstellar alliance. If there really is a soul, then Su Zheng is the soul of the entire interstellar alliance. But now, he has to personally extinguish the soul flower of the Star Alliance. This cognition pains him deeply. Try to keep your breath calm, the old man said, if so, prepare. The little nurse walked forward and tearfully placed a hemispherical round shell behind Su Zheng's head. Watching the little nurse frantically continue to connect, the old man's heart became increasingly painful as the connection was completed. Tai Lao, it's done, said the little nurse. These words come out of my mouth, as if I have shouldered all the sins of the world, and their voices are so subtle that they are almost imperceptible. The old man took the button and looked straight into Su Zheng's eyes. Unable to find fear and unease, the elderly only see calmness and enlightenment, even mixed with excitement and anticipation. Press it. Encouragement from Su Zhengsheng. Also. Please give me your blessings. In an instant, the old man's lips lost all color. Farewell, my friend. The old man pressed down. The hemispherical instrument lit up slightly and began to charge. After the buzzing sound, the light shimmered lightly and then dimmed. Under the new brainwave separator, death is so simple. Pain, buzzing for a while before calming down. Farewell, my friend. Farewell. The old man murmured incessantly, but saw a sudden burst of light from Su Zheng's half-open and half-closed eyes before slowly extinguishing. The respirator has stopped. The peaceful electronic synthesized female voice softly recited, the patient died. Name, Su Zheng. Time of death. 17:33:27 in the interstellar calendar 3207. The old man stood numbly by the bedside, holding the button that caused him to be separated from Su Zheng, as if it were a clay sculpture. He remained silent and motionless as he watched the doctors and nurses wrap Su Zheng's body with the flag of the Star Alliance, allowing the painful breath to spread throughout the ward. Iron Old Man, look. The little nurse placed the stereoscopic projector in front of the old man. Through his bright red eyes, the old man saw two teenagers under 8 years old huddled intimately on the stereo projector, shoulder to shoulder, laughing and laughing. One was Su Zheng, and the other was himself. Below the image is a line of small characters. Iron Tiger, little tiger son, let me take a look at your little tiger teeth again. The old man trembled and tried hard to pull away his face, giving a big smile, with two clear tiger teeth visible on his lower lip. Zhao Zhengzi. The old man trembled and tried to retract his erect tears, but ultimately failed. He covered his face and burst into tears. Volume I Small Mount Taishan 01 in the Alien Jungle. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In fact, Su Zheng really walked very easily. For euthanasia, ancient medicinal methods are no longer used. In the battle against extraterrestrial creatures, Su Zheng invented this thing in order to allow soldiers who were seriously injured and unable to be cured to escape the sea of suffering. In the dark, Su Jing seemed to have known that he would use this thing one day, so he made all the necessary mental preparations early. However, experiencing it firsthand is another matter. Many people have imagined it, but no one truly knows what death is all about. Su Jing doesn't know either. I only know that the brain-wave separator will not cause pain. The real experience is indeed like this. Amidst the buzzing sound, Su Jing felt increasingly drowsy and naturally closed his eyes. And then darkness came. At the moment when darkness arrived, Su Jing was very certain that he was dead. But suddenly the sky and earth lit up again. And it was too bright, the colorful twinkling light shone in front of Su Jing, making him unable to open his eyes. Instinctively, I want to close my eyes. Su Jing realized that he couldn't even do the action of closing his eyes. Looking around in a panic, Su Jing was surprised to find that he had no physical foundation at all. Or rather, he had no idea what else he had. As an intelligent brain for human-machine synthesis, Su Jing's knowledge can be said to be the most extensive, so he is well aware that the extreme perspective of a person is generally 90,110 degrees. As a yellow person, my maximum visual acuity can approach 180 degrees, but in reality, if it exceeds around 135 degrees, it can only be considered as corner of the eye glare. But now, I am indeed observing from a 360-degree perspective. No need to move anything, Su Jing can see clearly from top to bottom, left and right. You can see everything, the only thing you can't see is yourself. What about the body? Where has the body gone? Su Jing was puzzled by his thoughts. I saw countless celestial bodies floating in a void. Flat spherical planets come in various colors, lazily spinning or carrying their own meteorite halo, like a spinning brim or hurriedly passing by with their own satellites. The fluffy, cotton candy-like nebula appears in colorful hues, rich enough to be described in language. Su Jing is very familiar with this scene. Although he cannot speak or move, he can observe the world through the cameras on the internet. Whatever you see in front of you, you can easily see it through any spaceship. The question is, how could he see these things? Can we say that the world after death is like this? In a moment of mental stagnation, a ball of meteorite swiftly passed by, and Su Jing was startled. Subconsciously, he wanted to avoid it. Sure, my consciousness moved, but I found that there was no body to move. This feeling is very strange. From a comprehensive perspective, Su Jing saw a comet-like object rushing towards him. Unable to hide, neither could Su Jing. He watched helplessly as the celestial body rushed towards him and collided with him. It's not painful, but I feel like I'm sticking to it, shifting from a static float to running forward with it. What is the situation? Su Jing couldn't help but cry and laugh. However, just go ahead and run. Not knowing where the destination is actually more interesting than knowing. In any case, it is much better than lying in a hospital bed and being unable to move or speak all day. Only by using human thinking and the speed of machines to analyze intelligence and data can one feel their own situation when they exist. So, Su Jing was free and full of fun as he ran forward with that meteorite, not knowing how many unfamiliar galaxies he had flown through, how many long years he had gone through, and how many endless void he had passed through. This journey is very interesting. It's so interesting that Su Jing never dreamed of such a journey. There are too many celestial bodies that Su Jing had not seen, and too many nebulae that Su Jing could not imagine. Interestingly, Su Jing felt that his death was really worth it, seeing scenes that could only appear in his dreams. Interestingly, Su Jing's anticipation for the upcoming journey was even greater, and he hoped that this meteorite would continue to travel endlessly and traverse the entire universe. But in fact, after an unknown amount of time, this guy actually slowed down and became slower, with a faint tendency to stop. This makes Su Jing a bit uneasy. The journey of observing and thinking while traveling has become addictive for Su Jing. What if this guy really stops? I don't seem to have the ability to move freely, can't I accompany it to the end of time in this void? It's extremely bad to finally get rid of the hospital bed that I've been lying in for 147 years and replace it with a meteorite. Su Zheng's worries did not actually turn into reality in the end. The meteorite did indeed stop, and the time it stopped did not allow Su Zheng's worries to escalate to a point where it started moving again. This continued journey is clearly different from the previous wandering aimlessly, as it feels like finding a clear destination and heading straight towards it. What makes it like this? Su Zheng's great joy now went from not expecting anything to becoming extremely excited. Slightly, Su Zheng felt that the previous travels were all overtures for the ultimate destination, and the ultimate goal was the magnificent movement. Is it another long journey, or is it a magnificent scenery woven from numerous celestial bodies and nebulae? The only difference is that Su Zheng saw the ultimate goal. How to put it, at first Su Zheng didn't care. There are too many things to see in the entire void, and with a 360-degree perspective, there is even more to see. So a small dot is difficult to catch Su Zheng's attention. But slowly, the small dot grew bigger and bigger, and the pointed tip of the comet-shaped meteorite it was harboring pointed straight at that object, which caught Su Zheng's attention. In his field of vision, Su Zheng watched as the thing grew bigger and bigger, from a small dot to a small ball, and then to a blue dot green planet. The host meteorite rushed straight over without hesitation. Originally, Su Zheng thought he would fall along with the meteorite and create a Tungusian explosion or something on this unknown planet. While calculating the explosive level equivalent of a nuclear bomb when such a large person's head was hit, he suddenly realized that he had separated from the meteorite. That guy actually threw his only passenger down, abruptly stopping at an estimated speed. He then turned his head in an incredible posture and drifted away towards the destination, leaving only Su Zheng with no weight left. However, he crashed in a stubborn direction towards this blue dot green planet. This guy. It's simply unforgivable, unforgivable. While Su Zheng was trying to scrape away his pitiful profanity and contemptuously contemplate this kind-hearted guy, he found himself seeing clouds, then forests, and even a lake with a blue water that made him feel the urge to dive in. Have emotions really descended to the mortal world? This is Su Zheng's last idea. Because next he felt a terrifying attraction pulling him, and then he was pulled away without any room for resistance. Then there was no feeling left. Darkness is coming again. Volume I Small Mount Taishan 02 in the Exotic Forest. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Cold. Hungry. Cold and hungry. It's not a bit cold, a bit hungry, it's very cold, very hungry. At that moment, Su Zheng was almost dizzy with joy. God knows, he has been lying on his respirator and life support system for many years without knowing what these two feelings are. For ordinary people, the bad feeling of being cold and hungry becomes a luxurious enjoyment. What exactly happened, Su Zheng didn't want to investigate at all. Being able to experience this feeling, he was already moved to the point of crying bitterly, and nothing else was important. The feeling of being alive spread throughout Su Zheng's body, leaving his mind blank with happiness. Does the legendary rebirth appear on oneself? Even if one is convinced that death is like a lamp going out, it will turn white and nothing will be left. Su Zheng, who has been drifting through the void for several years, still allows the idea of rebirth to run through his entire mind at this moment. What else is impossible to experience the years of drifting in the void, even if one believes that nothing exists after death? Rebirth, rebirth. Very good. Very powerful. After a long time, Su Zheng finally calmed down from this impact and became curious to know what the current situation was and what it would regenerate. In fact, Su Zheng doesn't really care about regenerating pigs and dogs, as long as he can experience life experiences, he is already very satisfied. But curiosity is inevitable. So, he dismissed all thoughts and vigorously opened his eyes to welcome everything new. Feeling the presence of his limbs, the first thing Su Jing did when he opened his eyes was to put his hand, perhaps now the thing that had become his forelimbs, in front of him. Well, it's really one hand. Wow, I'm very happy. It hasn't turned into a pig or a dog. Although I don't really mind, walking with my stomach down makes me feel tired and scratching. Just. Su Jing looked at his hand in confusion. Why does this thing look so different from before? Spread your 5 fingers and observe carefully. A palm connected to 5 fingers, very complete, with all the necessary components and nothing missing. Although it has been so many years and it feels unfamiliar to have hands that can move autonomously for the first time, and it is not very accustomed to moving, and it is also very stiff, i.e. grows on himself. He can indeed exercise, unlike the body that has been lying down for over 100 years. Not to mention, its skin is completely different from the previous bark-like skin. This palm is pink and tender in color, and its 5 fingers are white, chubby, and connected like small white radishes. It looks cute no matter what. Wait. Su Jing suddenly understood where the crux lay. This is not an adult's hand, it's just a little baby's palm. Is it difficult for oneself to become a little baby? Su Jing suddenly panicked and instinctively opened his mouth, wanting to scream. And he really called out. However, I didn't hear the frightened screams in my imagination, but instead heard a series of babbling sounds that I couldn't even understand. Damn it! I really turned into a little doll. This cognition flashed through Su Jing's mind, and he immediately shut up. Subconsciously, he clenched his fist to block his mouth. The result was that because the baby's brain developed earlier and their limbs were relatively slow, it appeared that their head was big and their mouth was big, but their fists were small. Therefore, Su Jing's action resulted in directly stuffing the entire fist into his mouth. The sound of consciousness clearly caught the attention of others. Su Jing suddenly had an additional face in his field of vision. A fluffy face, giving off this feeling due to its bushy beard. Su Jing's gaze was fixed directly on this face. How to describe it? A very masculine face with a lot of beard, dark brown, and a square face shape. The eyebrows are also dark brown, with long eyebrow lines that make the sunken eyes look profound. Below, the nose is straight and the lips are thin, with a slightly concave handsome chin, giving the overall appearance of a Western-style man's face. Su Jing was looking at the first person he saw when the man spoke, feeling novel and interesting. Su Jing didn't understand a single word. It's unbelievable that Su Jing, as the first-generation intelligent brain, is proficient in 211 languages of the entire Star Alliance, and can even understand some of the alien languages used by the invading army in the past, but he can't understand what this man is saying. But that man has a good voice, with a deep and powerful voice that sounds good. What the man said, Su Jing didn't understand and only stared at him with his bright eyes open. In Su Jing's pure gaze, without any impurities, the man retreated, with a complex emotion of shame, guilt, and panic flashing in his eyes. He stretched out his hand, pulled Su Jing's little fist out of his mouth, and said something more. Su Jing still didn't understand. However, the following is a bit absurd. The man placed Su Jing on the ground. Before Su Jing could see the man's attire from the perspective of looking up at the mountain, he saw the man pull out a long sword, grip the handle with both hands, and aim at himself on the ground. His face struggled as he was about to thrust down. I don't know if it's because he died once, but Su Jing's reaction to the death he will face next is surprisingly slow. He immediately realized that he could still see things like swords. It should be noted that in the era of Star Wars, against the backdrop of various ray guns, miniature nuclear weapons, individual mechs, and warships flying all over the sky, it is indeed a magical thing to see the ancient cold weapon longsword, which can only be seen in museums. So, Su Jing's gaze was fixed on the sword, only feeling magical, really magical. The man didn't cry or make a fuss when he saw Su Jing, but his gaze was fixed on the sword, as if he was stunned. The guilty expression in his eyes was even more intense. Biting teeth, the hand holding the sword kept trembling, but unfortunately it couldn't thrust down. Sunshine cast on Su Zheng's face, a delicate little face with unique black eyebrows and eyes, extremely handsome. Will such a life disappear in one's own hands? Inhale, lift your sword, and thrust down. When it comes into contact with the fabric on the chest, it feels like a long sword weighing over 1,000 pounds, unable to move any further. After repeated attempts, the man finally understood that no matter what, he couldn't kill this little baby with no resistance. With a frustrated sigh, the man picked up Su Zheng and gave him a heavy kiss on his small face. He carefully tied up Su Zheng's swaddling clothes, looked at Su Zheng's small face in the sunlight for a while, placed him back on the ground, whispered something, and turned his head and walked away. If Su Zheng could understand, he would understand what the man was saying. Seeking more blessings for oneself. The problem is that he can't understand at all. He just realized later that this man is here to handle his emotions. The thought only flashed through my mind, and the person had already left with great strides, leaving Su Zheng, who had already understood everything, babbling on the ground. What? Don't understand. Understood, no one can understand a baby's speech except for those who are mothers. However, except for the author, I will translate for you. Su Zheng said, "Did you abandon me again? It's the second time. Love, unforgivable, unforgivable. Mother, cold and hungry." Volume I Small Mount Taishan Mountain in the Exotic Forest 03. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Zheng almost immediately wanted to chase that man. But he immediately realized that it was very difficult to achieve this. Have you ever seen a baby who is only a few months old rolling around and chasing people like a meatball? That's not called a baby, it's a monster. And the swaddling clothes wrapped around Su Zheng are too tight. Su Zheng is like a solid zongzi. Moving his toes is a difficult move. So Su Zheng could only watch the person leave, leaving only the first face he saw after being reborn deeply imprinted in his mind. The most troublesome problem now is not being able to move. Why do you always encounter such a situation? For 147 years, you have been running around with a stone, which is enough to represent how many years with this unknown number, and then you are tied into a zongzi and put it here. These three situations are so similar that Su Zheng couldn't help but cry and laugh. Unable to move, Su Zheng rolled his eyes and looked around. Clearly, I am lying in a small clearing in a forest. Surrounded by small grass, surrounded by a stone slab lying on its own. The grass is not tall, the color is delicate, and it looks similar to the natural reserve above the central star. The surrounding big trees are towering and tall, with dark green leaves, each one larger than an adult's palm. Based solely on the shape of the leaves, Su Zheng cannot distinguish what variety it is. From the space enclosed by the treetops, there are clearly 3 rounds of the sun in the sky. Strange, is there a planet orbiting around 3 stars? This clearly breaks Su Zheng's common sense. It doesn't matter how many stars it has, the important thing is that it's very cold and hungry. I don't know what the thing wrapped around my body is made of, it doesn't have any warmth at all, it's so cold. The sound of gurgling came from my little belly, making me feel even more hungry. Previously, several tubes were connected to the body, and nutrient solution was transported into the body in a fixed manner. The digestive organs had already necrotized and removed in an unknown interstellar year, and there was no feeling of hunger. Now I can feel it, and only after the surprise did I realize that being hungry is such a painful thing. But soon, Su Zheng felt that hunger was just a tiny thing compared to what was happening before him. Behind the big tree, a creature turns out. After observing for a while, he let out a roar and then turned around with one big and one small. Su Zheng's eyes immediately widened and became round. Mamma mia! After escaping from the sword, at most in only half an hour, 2 big and 1 small tigers emerged and 3 tigers emerged. What kind of situation is this? It's better to finish with a sword than to get up and down into the tiger's mouth and be chewed and swallowed like a meatball. It's all done in one go, saving you the pain of flipping back and forth. Su Jing didn't want to escape, the problem was that he couldn't escape. In the line of sight, he could only watch the 3 of them getting closer and closer, until a more fluffy tiger face came down and looked at him with a confused expression. Although it is not certain whether animals have expressions, Su Jing can be certain that the tiger is indeed looking at it with a puzzled expression. That gaze clearly revealed confusion about why a species like Su Jing appeared here. Upon closer inspection, Su Jing finally realized for the first time that the tiger's eyes were so big as a fist of its original body. Do you have such big tiger eyes? Looking at the pet's large body, it is not an exaggeration to say that there is a tiger that is twice as big as the one seen in the video. Despite being afraid of death, Su Jing couldn't stop and continue to examine the threat in front of him. It's useless to be afraid, isn't it? Anyway, we can't escape. A little baby has no room for struggle in front of a tiger. At this moment, Su Jing wished he was truly a little baby. At least the little baby doesn't understand what's in front of them and the impending fate of being swallowed. The wise fear the most, however, when the spoiled tiger face blocked Su Jing's main line of sight and he could only look at the 2 beside him with his spare light. Su Jing was not sure if these 3 were just the traditional definition of tigers. My gaze rested on the tiger's teeth. Not bad, it's indeed tiger fawn. You can determine it based on its shape. But is there a tiger tooth that protrudes its upper lip and protrudes almost a foot out of its mouth? Why not? Is it a saber-toothed tiger? It seems that this thing went extinct tens of thousands of years ago. Nowadays, tigers can only be seen in natural ecological reserves, let alone saber-toothed tigers. And what's on your back? The small one is still in a childish shape and cannot be determined. But the larger one grew 2 organs from its 2 shoulder blades, contracting layer by layer on its body, resembling the membranous wings of a bat. Can't it really be that thing, right? Just as he was thinking about it, his fleshy wings opened up and flapped, while another big one half leaped and half flew into the air, with its wings fully extended. A beautiful gliding and turning maneuver landed lightly, standing shoulder to shoulder with the one staring at Su Jing with big eyes. Su Jing's mind suddenly became a blur. Those 2 organs are really what I guessed, not even their functions were wrong. Now, 2 big faces leaned in front of Su Jing, and the big eyes staring at the small eyes became a plural structure of big eyes, big eyes, big eyes staring at the small eyes, small eyes. Staring for a while, nothing came of it. One tiger face turned to the other, as if communicating something. At first glance, there is no difference between the 2 tiger faces. Now that they were all in front of him, Su Jing realized that one face was more imposing, while the other appeared much more delicate. Plus the small one. A family of 3. I don't know if I'm afraid of dying, or if I've died once, there's nothing to be afraid of. Anyway, after the initial fear, Su Jing was no longer so afraid. When the powerful and tiger-like creature lifted itself from the ground with one paw and looked closely in front of him, Su Jing had some leisure time to think, hey, this guy's paws are quite flexible, not much worse than human fingers. The real situation is that the powerful claw is far from reaching the agility of human fingers, but it is much higher than Su Jing's perception of the agility of tiger claws. Now, it is passing through the cloth on Su Jing's swaddling clothes with one hand, stringing it up like a rice-meat dumplings with a fork, and looking at the little thing. After watching for a while, it was still the last fruit. Su Jing looked at it and had already guessed half of its thoughts. It seems that it can still arouse its appetite, but for such an unknown little thing, it is still struggling. Should it eat or not? This is a question. In the end, Su Jing's pink and tender skin made him determined. Turning his head to look at the one that should be his spouse, He forcefully opened his mouth and wanted to put the small ball like Su Zheng into his mouth. It's over. Su Zheng accepted his fate and closed his eyes. Just as Su Zheng was so close to the tiger's mouth that the tongue coating on the tiger's tongue could be clearly seen, the smaller one stumbled over and unfolded its still unformed wings, using a lion's pounce to snatch Su Zheng from the tiger's mouth. Good luck. The grass on the small open space is indeed very delicate, so much so that when Su Zheng fell on it, he only rolled in 2 circles on the grass without any adverse consequences except for dizziness and dizziness. Did you escape from the tiger's mouth? Su Zheng can only think positively. I saw the young tiger charging forward unsteadily, holding on to its half-size body. A clear smile appeared on its face, and it looked at the newly acquired toy with great interest. Seeing this situation, the 2 adult tigers exchanged a glance, and after a burst of communication, they tacitly agreed to Su Zheng's existence. And when the young tiger tried several times to take Su Zheng away, but had more heart and less strength, the majestic one finally put down its body, extended a new paw, put Su Zheng on it, roared, and held its head high like an emperor, leading his wife and child, and the 3 tigers back to the forest, giving alms. The crisis of becoming food has passed. Su Zheng is very grateful to the young tiger. He really wants to say thank you. In fact, he also said, yeah. The young tiger shuddered and suddenly became excited, quickly responding, yeah. Look, the pronunciation rules are the same, how they share a common language. You can imagine how happy this person's future life will be. Buddha bless, Amen. How to say, after Su Zhengfeng came to the alien world, the life of the alien version of Mount Taishan ape, taking the opportunity of 3 winged tigers, was officially launched. Volume I Small Mount Taishan 04 in the Exotic Forest. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. In the blink of an eye, time flies, and it has been 16 years since Su Zheng was born into a foreign world in an extremely humble way. In the past 16 years, Su Zheng has grown from a meatball like Zhongzi to a tall and straight teenager. Many things were only understood by Su Zheng after he was taken back to Yihu's home. For example, at that time, Yihu dad was not actually hungry. He just thought that Su Zheng looked pink, tender, and probably had a good taste. After flipping his mind several times, he finally made up his mind to try the taste. Unfortunately, I was interrupted midway, which is somewhat regrettable. As for why people hesitate to taste it, for example, there are always many mushrooms in the forest, right? There are many that look bright and cute, delicious, but they are toxic and not toxic. You have to try them out to find out. No poison, of course you're happy, I'm happy, everyone is happy. As for being toxic, gaga, that's just satisfying to death. Want to have fun? That will come at a cost. In fact, what Yihu dad was thinking at that time was that with Su Zheng's tiny body size, if it were really poisonous, would it poison him to death? In this moment of hesitation, little winged tiger snatched his toy. Becoming a toy is one of the reasons why Su Zheng survived. Secondly, it was because Su Zheng was indeed starving at the time, so the swaddle on his body was torn off. The little winged tiger only played with him carefully for a while. Just as the winged tiger mother was about to breastfeed, Su Zheng saw the swollen asterisk and didn't care about it. He rushed up with all his limbs, grabbed one, and began to suck fiercely. Its momentum was so wild and fierce that all 3 winged tigers were stunned for a while. It's really not to be underestimated that such a small body size can exude such a strong aura. Cold asterisk being bitten, the first bite of tiger milk sucked in, and the winged tiger mother felt a strange sensation, as if this little thing was also born of her own. A blood-thick, water-like tenderness grew in her heart. She gave birth to 2 winged tigers for the first time, and one of them unfortunately died young. The psychological gap formed by the loss of a son was precisely filled by Su Zheng's first sip of milk. As the logic became clear, Su Zheng became a new member of this alternative family. This was only later analyzed by Su Zheng. At that time, I couldn't care about so much and just bit on asterisk for a while, sucking and drinking wildly until I was satisfied and comfortably hiccuped. It was only then that I realized that the mother winged tiger's gaze on me had unconsciously become as gentle as water. The next thing is even simpler. Anyway, the mother winged tiger has plenty of milk, and the little winged tiger doesn't care if it's multiple brothers or toys. Anyway, he understands that he's happy to have someone to play with. Although the male winged tiger still had some aversion to this little thing with an unclear origin, it could not resist the pleading of two family members, one big and one small. After making a few unclear sounds to show its resistance, it went on a big show and officially made Su Zheng a member of the family. And Su Zheng thrived under the care of 3 winged tigers, 2 big and 1 small. On this day, the weather was clear and clear, with thousands of miles of clouds in the blue sky, leaving only 3 rounds of the sun hanging high in the sky, lazily emitting light. The lake in the forest is still as blue as a giant sapphire. Under the sunshine, the lake surface shimmers with ripples, reflecting different angles of light as the breeze blows, creating a beautiful and peaceful atmosphere. By the lake, various species of organisms choose to come and drink water at this time, enjoying rare leisure in the sweet lake water after the rainy season. Through the thin mist rising from the sunlight on the lake's surface, the distant mountains rise like towering mountains, like thick ink splashing down, all covered in deep and shallow green. In the air, birds glide in various colors and postures, with little silhouettes passing by and a startled swan appearing, leaving its mark. Nearby, the lake is blue, with occasional aquatic creatures leaping out of the water, creating a magnificent trajectory, paired with various creatures that drink water. Quietly, everything can be incorporated into the painting, and it's incredibly beautiful. Everything is so harmonious and beautiful, like a fairy mirror on earth. Anyone who sees this scene will instinctively hold their breath, afraid that it will damage or spare anything. But unfortunately, there are people who want to do such a despicable thing as boiling cranes and burning Qin. Lulu. Charge me. After a strong and obvious shout from the voice of a young man during the period of voice change, another growl sounded as if it were an adult or underage, clear and not powerful enough. 2 things rushed out of the forest amidst the lingering sound. As I ran closer, I could see clearly that one of the 2 guys was a juvenile winged tiger, and the other was the only unique species in the forest. A human teenager. A human teenager rides on a winged tiger, with shoulder-length hair fluttering in the wind. Black hair, black eyebrows, and black gemstone-like eyeballs combined to create a unique and mysterious taste, appearing extremely handsome. Wearing leaves together around the waist on a body without fur, forming a dress-like, non-skirt-like equipment that barely covers key areas. There are also similar equipment on the head, like a hat wrapped around the head, to suppress long hair and prevent them from flying recklessly. Apart from these 2 types of leaf equipment, the human teenager has nothing more than a javelin in his hand. The whole body was exposed to the sunlight, appearing slightly black in skin, with long and powerful limbs, and a lively and agile young man. Lulu, go up. The young man cleared his throat. Flip over and turn from a straddle to a standing position, standing on the back of a tiger. The winged tiger, known as Lulu, responded with a sound, and its hind limbs suddenly exerted force, leaping into the air. A pair of fleshy wings stretched out with a moan, half gliding and half jumping, charging forward. The creature drinking water can't help but understand that these 2 troublemakers have arrived when it hears the call. After listening to this shouting for 16 years, I don't understand what will happen next. That's a fool. In an instant, the lakeside exploded, and all the creatures were too busy drinking water, turning their heads and running away one by one. I saw the lake water splashing, smoke and dust rising everywhere, and my eyes were filled with living creatures fleeing, flying, running, jumping, crawling, and walking in panic, all wishing for my parents to have 2 more legs. At this point, The magnificent scene of all things drawing water was destroyed in the blink of an eye, and the entire lakeside was a mess. The ones who can do such things, of course, are Su Zheng and the winged tiger named He Lulu. Of course, Su Zheng was completely unaware of how magnificent his appearance was. He had already aimed his javelin at a fat, goat-like object. "Lulu!" Su Zheng shouted. As if the coordination was good, Lulu's wings flapped and the forward thrust came to a sudden halt, performing a steady hover in the air. Su Zheng started to move, gripping the back of the tiger with his feet, twisting his waist and arms, making a beautiful half-spin. He threw the javelin out of his hand and aimed it directly at the panicked fleeing target. The intense contrast between movement and stillness, cooperation and stillness, is truly pleasing to the eye. The javelin left, and due to Su Zheng's injection of swirling force when he released it, it spun and flew towards a target resembling a sheep. Why would it be said to be like a sheep not in a room? Because the object seemed to be unable to escape the javelin, the sudden person stood up and the electric light between the two corners shone brightly. With a crackling sound, a lightning bolt was released, hitting Su Zheng's javelin head-on. Ordinary sheep cannot use this trick. So although it looks like a traditional goat on the outside, Su Zheng knows that deep down it's completely different. Seeing the javelin being blocked midway, Su Zheng let out a long laugh. His left hand quickly moved and quickly completed a knot. His right hand, along with his middle finger, swiped on the back of his left hand and whispered, "Xian Guang, break." A bright light flew out of his left fingertip and landed on the javelin. The javelin seemed to have received assistance, lit up slightly, and unstoppable acceleration shot forward, with the entire sheep nailed to the ground. Watching the unwilling eyes of the goat still open after its death, Su Zheng sighed and patted Lulu's head, causing both humans and tigers to descend to the ground. Before Su Zheng left, he pulled out the javelin from the sheep's body and whispered to the goat, "Don't blame me. The law of survival here is like this. The law of the jungle, either you eat me or I eat you. Survival comes first." Turning his head, he said, "Isn't that right, Lulu?" "I don't understand either." Lulu nodded incessantly and couldn't help but drool uncontrollably as he thought of the delicious food he could about to eat. Volume I Small Mount Taishan Mountain in the Exotic Forest 05. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Su Zheng placed the goat that could emit lightning on Lulu's body, gesturing for it to walk back on its back, while he took the javelin head and examined it himself. The javelin is about 12 meters long and is actually made by polishing the trunk of a tree that is relatively sturdy. Su Zheng carefully examined the tip of the gun and nodded in satisfaction when he saw that it was still sharp without any signs of wear or breakage. Being able to effectively kill prey at such a speed without damaging the tip of the gun indicates that one's heavenly way technique has stabilized to the second level of heavenly realm. The art of the heavenly way was originally a mandatory practice for everyone in the Star Alliance. There are a total of 14 levels of realms, known as the 1st to 13th levels of the heavenly realm and the known 14th level of the heavenly outer heaven. The core of this technique is the self-cultivation and self-improvement technique of Eastern Taoist thought. Later, due to the invasion of alien stars, the entire interstellar alliance was forced by external pressure to enter into a great fusion, and mixed with the Western culture to cultivate things outside in some essence of physical arts, forming a unified theory of self-exercise, the art of heaven. The central idea is to observe the heavens and the earth, combine the trajectory of the human body and the cycle of the heavenly path, and achieve the goal of self-sublimation. The overall theory and content are dominated by Eastern thought, supplemented by Western thought, and with the exercise of details, resulting in a multitude of complex details. There is no one in the Star Alliance who can reach the top of this set of self-cultivation and heart cultivation techniques. Su Zheng has been influenced by Eastern thought since childhood, and it is relatively easy to master the entire set of heavenly Tao techniques. Also, because he is a talented individual with extensive knowledge and strong memorization, he was already self-taught at the age of 12 and has reached the 10th level of the art of the heavenly way, reaching the highest level in the history of the Star Alliance. At this moment, the alien star invaded, and Su Jing resolutely gave up the heavenly way technique that had been cultivated to the 10th level. He ignited all his energy as a bridge and forcibly combined it with the most advanced optical brain at that time to become the first human-machine combination with human thinking, guiding the entire interstellar alliance to fight. The heavenly way technique that had been cultivated to the 10th level was thus broken. Speaking only of his body, Su Jing at that time was indeed a complete useless person. It is completely impossible to retrain the art of the heavenly way. Although the situation at that time forced Su Jing to do it, the destruction of the heavenly way cultivation midway became one of the most painful scars in Su Jing's heart. Now that he has reincarnated here and regained a vibrant body, it means he can retrain the art of the heavenly way. How could this not make Su Jing ecstatic? Therefore, the first thing Su Jing did was to rebuild the art of the heavenly way. The purpose is nothing more than that. Firstly, he followed the three-winged tigers and also witnessed how powerful many unknown creatures here are. To protect oneself, one must first become strong. Secondly, he was also curious. After crossing the threshold of the 13th level and breaking the void, what would be the different life journey like? The three main and most desired goals for Su Jing are to strengthen himself, enrich himself, and lead a happy life. So when Su Jing had just turned 9 months old and could only barely sit cross-legged, the first thing he did was sit cross-legged, starting the first chapter of practicing the art of the heavenly way. A 9-month-old baby sitting solemnly in a dangerous and ridiculous posture while practicing martial arts may be very howling. So in the middle, Su Jing was interrupted a lot and forcibly caught by Yi Hunyang to take care of him. The entire cultivation process was miserable. The cultivation of the art of the heavenly way is particularly important for beginners. The beginning of everything is difficult to say, it is not empty words. The cultivation of the heavenly way requires a sense of qi to truly enter the door. Qi, this elusive thing, is the core of the entire Tiandao technique in Eastern Taoist thought. Once this kind of discourse is established, anything can be explained and described using qi. Just like calculus, without true limits and summation, one cannot continue to learn. For the cultivation of the heavenly way, it is only after truly understanding the theory of the energy that is only understood but not expressed, that it is possible to have a sense of energy and continue to practice. Fortunately, Su Jing is not unfamiliar with this step. The memories of his past life still exist, and the process of understanding and recognizing qi can be skipped directly. The trouble lies in the sense of breath. As it is said, qi is something that can only be understood but not expressed in words. If you insist on finding something to use as a metaphor, you can understand it as a vague and steady energy. When the accumulation of this energy in the body reaches a certain amount, it can change from quantity to quality, creating a foundation and forming a sense of qi. At this step, Su Jing made a mistake. In the past, in the Interstellar Alliance, in order to enable more people to quickly change from quantity to quality, the pioneers of the heavenly way technique had already refined pills, medicines, and mixtures through various methods, and even opened up new ways to combine high-tech knowledge to manufacture things like gene injections. It can be said that the preparation work was prepared early. As long as you fill the body with a duck, accumulate the amount, and the rest is to wait for a certain level of understanding and recognition of qi to produce a quantitative change. In this unfamiliar time and space, there was nothing but poverty, and the process of accumulation took Su Jing 12 years. Every day, Su Jing can only absorb the free energy of nature by breathing and exhaling, accumulating it bit by bit, until he comprehends the sense of qi, generates a sea of qi in his body, and enters the first stage of practicing the art of the heavenly way to nourish qi. Entering the first stage, the cultivation of the heavenly way technique naturally became much faster. After entering the practice of the heavenly way technique, various benefits are also reflected. Based on the sense of qi, the part where Western thought is blended can be practiced. At the same time, in addition to practicing some physical techniques, one can also practice and cast a small part of Eastern secret techniques. The Xuanguang technique just now is one of them. Originally, Su Zheng's entry could have been faster. But due to the unpleasant environment he was in, Su Zheng made a decision as soon as he crossed the second floor. He built two things from the accumulated energy field that had passed through the first and second floors. A small spirit gathering array and a personal space with a volume of only 2 cubic meters. These two things, which can only appear in the third and fifth layers, were forcibly created by Su Zheng based on his past life experience. The result was to consume all the energy and return the cultivation level to the stage where the first layer had just realized the energy. With such recklessness, Su Zheng's cultivation returned to the first level, and it took him 3 years. Of course, there must be gains and losses. The advantage is that with a small spiritual gathering array, the cultivation of the Heavenly Way technique will be twice the result with half the effort. With this tool, you can gather energy and transform it into qi and improve your behavior. The forcibly open personal space, Su Zheng's only purpose at the time was to have multiple storage locations. Because living in this uninhabited forest, there are no tools at all. As a necessary material for survival, food cannot be stored at all. Every search for food consumes a lot of time. From a long-term perspective, instead of spending time searching for food every day, it is more cost-effective to find enough inventory and free up extra time for practice. Therefore, the personal space that can facilitate the storage of various items becomes crucial, which Su Zheng had to do. But what Su Zheng didn't expect was that after putting in a lot of effort and risking the risk of reincarnation, he could open up this space and grow on his own. In just 1 year, with the improvement of Su Zheng's Heavenly Way technique, it increased from a pitiful 2 cubic meters to 4 cubic meters, and there is still a possibility of limited increase. This is truly commendable and congratulatory. The danger I took at the beginning was also worth it. According to the previous understanding of the art of the Heavenly Way, personal space is a subspace forcibly opened up with powerful energy. That is to say, its volume is determined by the abilities of the pioneers. This means that you can open up as much as your abilities are, but once created, its volume is fixed and will not change again. The benefits of personal space are obvious. Almost every practitioner of the Heavenly Way technique is dissatisfied with their personal space capacity after experiencing its benefits. But this thing is a one-time thing, fixed and will not undergo any further changes. Even those with strong Heavenly Tao abilities have successfully created a second personal space. However, the cost of their ability is several times that of the first one, and there are not many people who can achieve this. Moreover, even if one can succeed, there is a significant difference between what they put in and what they receive in return. Except for those who have a short circuit in their nerves, no one would do such a thankless task. At first, Su Zheng also wanted to try opening another one, but later he gave it up because of the cost. In this unfamiliar time and space, the first personal space forcibly opened up in a situation of insufficient ability can actually grow. This left Su Zheng puzzled and secretly delighted. Based on his current understanding of this time and space, Su Zheng couldn't come up with a solution after much thought. He also gave up thinking about this issue and temporarily attributed the reason for this result to the difference in energy composition between this time and space and the original time and space. This difference is good, so I picked it up for nothing. Volume I Small Mount Taishan 06 in the Alien Forest. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Su Zheng didn't want to put the blood-drenched goat into his personal space, so he let Lulu carry it straight on his back. He didn't ride on Lulu's back and just followed him forward. At the fork in the road, Lulu turned back to look at Su Zheng. Su Zheng smiled and said, "You have a good memory. Do you remember we explored here yesterday?" After pondering for a moment, he said, "Anyway, it's still early today. Let's continue moving forward from yesterday, and the task of remembering the way is still entrusted to you." Lulu nodded, turned to the other side of the fork in the road, and ran forward with a cheerful expression. It also enjoys the process of exploring the unknown future. Since the Ihu couple started raising Su Zheng has been living with Xiaoyu. The two little guys always frolic and suckle together, and as they grow older, their relationship deepens. Su Duo, who has been a human for nearly 200 years, may still think that the little winged tiger is another species, but the little winged tiger regards Su Zheng, who grew up with him since childhood, as a family member. The name Lulu is because there is always a slight purring sound in its nose when it sleeps. Su Zheng has been sleeping with it since childhood. He is used to hearing this kind of sound and feels very friendly, so he gave it this name. At the beginning, Su Zheng and the three-winged tigers had a conversation, and could only guess their thoughts from their expressions and movements. On the other hand, the three-winged tigers treated Su Zheng the same way. But as time went on, especially when Su Zheng was able to speak, a constant stream of Chinese began to bombard Lulu. "There's no way, I can't find someone to talk to, but it seems like it's suffocating." Even if you can't find someone to talk to, finding a winged tiger to talk endlessly is still a way to vent. Just like this, one kept talking and the other had to listen. Slowly, Lulu understood what Su Zheng wanted to express, and he could understand it 60 or 70%. When giving simple instructions specifically about what to do or what tasks to complete, without fancy descriptions or word stuffing, Lulu's understanding of Su Zheng's words is 100% accurate. After that, Lulu became a translation machine, and what Su Zheng wanted to say to the two adult winged tigers was conveyed by Lulu. The instructions of two adult winged tigers were transmitted back from Lulu. Usually, the preparation level for passing on a grunt is 90%. But when it came back, Su Zheng's understanding was only 30%. Therefore, sometimes Su Zheng can't help but feel depressed, as his communication skills are not as good as those of a winged tiger. The exploration of this forest began when Su Zheng was 6 years old. The first adventure activity, Su Zheng and Lulu worked together very well. Su Zheng's rich knowledge and flexible thinking in touch with others enable one person and one tiger to move forward very well. And Lulu's unique animal instincts can remember the way home very well. And with the strength of the winged tiger, the character of the protector deserves it. The winged tiger is indeed very strong. As Su Zheng saw, so far there are only a few creatures that can directly conflict with the winged tiger. This kind of guy not only has super fast speed and agile body, but also sharp tiger teeth and claws are powerful weapons for defeating enemies. In addition, with wings on his back, flexibility, maneuverability, and combat range greatly improved, Su Zheng often comes up with the term, wings like a tiger, in his mind. Lulu, this little winged tiger is better off as it is underage. Su Zheng had seen two adult winged tigers spewing out energy from their mouths when facing enemies, like compressed air, which can be directly used to attack enemies with considerable power. The first time he met, Ihu Dad sprayed an invisible air and knocked down 4 large trees with a diameter of over 1 meter before giving up. Due to the strength of the winged tiger, there are very few natural enemies. So Su Zheng and Lulu lived freely in the forest. At first, Lulu was still responsible for protecting the safety of Su Zheng, a fragile child. As Su Zheng grew up, especially when he entered the second level of the cultivation of the Heavenly Way technique for the second time, Lulu directly became Su Zheng's follower from protection. From then on, the rest of the forest fell into bad luck. In the past, there was only one troublemaker, Lulu. Now, with the addition of Su Zheng, the Demon King, its destructive power is increasing exponentially. At the same time, Su Zheng and Lulu's exploration radius also revolved around the snail dwellings of Ihu Dad and Ihu Nyang, achieving the fastest foot distance for one person and one tiger with a radius of 1 day's round trip. There's no way, it's not that Su Zheng doesn't want to explore further, it's just that Ihu Nyang explained through Lulu. I don't care how far you 3 kids can go when they come out at dawn, but you must come back to eat and sleep for me before it gets dark. This is our family's rule. Everyone has to follow the rules for me. so Su Zheng can only explore within the circle drawn by Yi Hunyang. Although he cannot go further, he can understand more deeply and carefully. For the unknown world, Su Zheng is full of curiosity and wants to learn more. I lay in bed for 147 years in my past life, wanting to move but not moving. Now that he has a healthy body, Su Zheng is clearly suffering from acquired subjective spontaneous hyperactivity disorder. As long as he stops and doesn't do anything, he feels uncomfortable all over. That's why at the age of 6, he started jumping up and down with Lulu, feeling restless. It is said to be exploration, but the actual exploration work is completed by Su Zheng alone. Lulu is usually responsible for playing, accompanying Su Zheng, and then using his instincts to jot down the way home. The survey of the terrain and the recording of animals and plants were completed by Su Zheng. However, this life is not like the previous life. The previous life was a combination of humans and machines, and once you see it, you will remember it. In this life, you can only try to remember it in your mind, and when you return to your home, find a way to record it and improve the map that has already formed its initial form. Now, Su Zheng is branching and pulling leaves in front of him, while Lulu is carrying the prey he has brought back and closely following the others. There are too many things that Su Zheng doesn't know in this forest. Even if he knows them, there is still a part that looks like that, but in reality, it is specious. When Su Zheng sees something familiar, he will give it a familiar name. But he dare not determine whether it is true or not. After nearly 10 years of exploration, Su Zheng has gained a lot, including more than a dozen unnamed but delicious wild fruits. There are nearly 100 medicinal plants, some of which are animal remnants that may not have specific uses but feel useful. These things made Su Zheng disregard everything and throw them all into his personal space. If it weren't for the slow growth of personal space, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to pile it up long ago. After walking for nearly an hour, Su Zheng kept going and stopping, picking and picking. Suddenly, he stopped and extended his nose into the air to concentrate and smell carefully. Lulu felt nervous for a moment, thinking that the enemy had appeared. He instinctively approached Su Duo and cautiously surrounded him to protect Su Zheng behind him. Subconsciously, it still regarded Su Zheng as the little baby that needed protection before. Su Zheng smiled and said, "Lulu, don't be nervous. I just smelled a familiar smell and couldn't believe it." Soothing Lulu, Su Zheng searched for the fragrance and went over. As expected, I only walked a short distance and found something growing in a piece of land as large as 2 plots of land on the ground. This kind of thing is like a pile of grass, low and not high, only reaching the height of Su Zheng's calves. The whole plant is covered with light white and white flowers with a hint of green. Huajiduan also bears some seeds, measuring 456 mm in length and around 115 mm in width, with pointed ends that resemble poorly developed wheat. Su Zheng squatted down and could smell the rich aroma emanating from the flowers and seeds without bowing his head. A burst of ecstasy filled Su Zheng's heart, and he didn't dare to make a decision. He stretched his hand and picked some seeds that he had crushed with his nails. He placed the flattened oily seeds on his nose and sniffed them carefully for a while before finally making a decision. It is precisely cumin, a top-notch spice used for barbecue. Ha ha ha. Su Zheng couldn't help but burst out laughing wildly. I didn't expect there to be such a good thing here. Lulu, now we can find the treasure. Is it so good? Lulu glanced askance at the low and inconspicuous grass in front of him. Fragrance is very fragrant, it irritates its sensitive nose and makes it want to sneeze, but it's hard to see where the good is. Don't believe it. Su Zheng smiled. You'll know when you make barbecue at night. Don't swallow your tongue then. Hee, finding this thing is really an unexpected gain. Lulu, when I have enough, I'll go back home and make you a good meal of bran tonight. Su Zheng's barbecue skills are excellent, and Lulu has already experienced them. Since eating Su Zhengshin's self-roasted meat, Lulu believes that there is nothing better than that in the world. Can this taste be even more delicious? With a skeptical gaze, Lulu watched Su Jing happily picking his small seed called Xiren, throwing it into his personal space one by one. Knowing whether Lulu believed it or not, Su Jing was too lazy to argue with it. Anyway, after eating it at night, he would know. He can only focus on vigorously picking these spices that were once as valuable as gold, and even dug up nearly 10 plants to put in his personal space, hoping to move somewhere to cultivate them. After this round of picking, the mature cumin seeds were left to Su Jing to pick them all before he was satisfied and led Lulu back with all his heart's content. Volume I Small Mount Taishan in the Exotic Forest 07. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Returning to the territory of the two-winged tigers, it happened to be when the sky was getting dark. Two-winged tigers lazily lay in the small gathering spirit formation under Su Jing's cloth. The father of Ihu didn't even consider the return of the two little ones, while the mother of Ihu looked up at them with a clear expression in her eyes. If the two little ghosts come back later, you will have something to look good at. Su Jing was cold, although he had already realized that he had become one of the children of the two-winged tigers in their eyes, and did not think there was anything wrong with it. However, when he was scanned by the eyes of such a child who looked at him for not growing up, he still felt cold and uneasy. Turning his head to look at the two parents in the Jiulu formation, Su Jing felt a headache. This Jiulu formation, which was created through countless hardships, was originally intended to enhance the cultivation of the heavenly way technique. Unexpectedly, the two parents accidentally ran inside to take a break and found that their abilities had rapidly increased, so they immediately took over. Su Jing, the creator, and Lulu had to wait for these two inexperienced spiritual beings to absorb enough before they were eligible to enter. Walking lightly past the two parents, Su Jing couldn't help but feel envious as he watched their increasingly smooth fur. A furry creature is good. Look at this fur, let this Jiulu formation be raised, shiny and smooth like something. You can even use shampoo for advertising. Walking to his own spot, Su Jing skillfully set up the support and dragged the goat down from Lulu's back, saying to Lulu, "Open it up." Lulu excitedly pounced forward, waving his sharp tiger teeth and claws as he began to dismember the goat. One person and one tiger have collaborated multiple times, and Lulu's butcher work is done with ease. He uses his sharp teeth and claws, and his technical level is no less than that of the bull Ding Jianyo. And Su Jing is not worried at all that Lulu will steal food. Since eating their own barbecue, as long as Su Jing is present, the three-winged tigers will never touch raw meat. Ihu would like to eat cooked food made by himself, which Su Jing had never expected before. The lactation period of winged tigers is 3 years. After 3 years of weaning, the little winged tiger also has the basic ability to pounce and digest raw meat. At this point, you can take them out hunting and start eating raw food. For this point, Lulu has no problem. If it weren't for Su Jing's appearance, Lulu would have grown up healthy eating raw meat. But if there is an extra human, and it is a reincarnated human with past life memories, the problem becomes bigger. As soon as the 3-year lactation period arrived, Xiao Shujing couldn't bear being forced to eat raw meat by Yi Hunyang. Every time she ate, she would vomit, and when she vomited, she would continue to feed. She would feed Su Jing in the front and then vomit again and again, creating a vicious cycle. In the end, she didn't even need to eat or smell raw meat, and Su Jing would vomit as soon as he saw it. What's the point of not eating? Ko was so worried that Yi Hunyang looked at Xiao Su Jing every day, feeling sad, afraid that he would disappear like his first child. In fact, Su Jing himself was dizzy with hunger. When he was determined to eat raw meat, when the rainy season came, rainstorm continued to bring abundant rain. At the same time, a series of lightning also ignited the withering technique and roared into flames. Su Jing hurriedly and carefully collected the ignition, protecting it like a treasure. He used this ignition fire to roast meat and eat it every day, which solved the problem of eating raw meat while drinking blood. With cooked food to eat, Su Zheng was certainly not satisfied with only eating the original flavor of meat. Moreover, even when cooked, meat products still have a natural fishy smell without seasoning. So after being able to move freely at the age of 6, searching for seasonings became a daily routine that must be done. Not to mention, after searching for a while, Su Zheng was indeed able to find several types of grass and bark that could be used as seasoning. Every time he grilled meat, Su Zheng would add these seasonings, making the aroma fragrant and the taste of the grilled meat increasingly enhanced, becoming more and more delicious. The three-winged tigers couldn't withstand the temptation in the end. One day, they couldn't bear the aroma swirling around their noses. Lulu bravely tasted it first. Unexpectedly, "It's not that I don't know without tasting, I can't forget it with just one taste," and Lulu immediately fell in love with it. After Lulu gave the tiger father and tiger mother a try, Sanhu completely sneered at raw meat. From then on, unless extremely hungry, if the prey hunted back was not processed by Su Zheng, the three tigers would never touch it. Lulu's movements were quick and effective, and he quickly completed the work. Su Zheng glanced at it and threw a few leaves over. Lulu stretched out his paws and grabbed them, carefully wiping his paws with inflexible movements until they shone brightly before throwing away the leaves. This is the hygiene habit that it took several years for it to become with Su Zheng through his unremitting efforts. Tiger Dad and Tiger Mom are rotten wood and can't be carved anymore. We don't expect them to wipe their paws or anything before meals. But Lulu, if you want to eat what I make, you must first clean your paws for me. This is Su Zheng's original words. As for Lulu. Of course. If you don't, just dodge and you won't be able to eat anything. Poor Lulu, it took nearly half a year to learn this set of difficult movements, and this painful situation is not humane to the outside world. Have you ever seen a tiger washing its paws before a meal? Don't doubt it, there's one right in front of you. Su Zheng's product is so unconventional. The fire had already risen, and three tigers surrounded them, watching Su Zheng cook food with interesting eyes. The three-winged tigers have seen Su Zheng operate this process multiple times. Lulu once expressed a desire to learn. But after trying it once, it completely gave up. This thing was done by humans, not by tigers. But it doesn't matter if we can't learn, do we have Su Zheng? And watching the whole process of Su Zheng's barbecue, smelling the pungent aroma, and anxiously waiting to see the meat gradually cooked, this is also a never-ending pleasure. The longer the wait, the higher the expected value, which means that the final baked product will taste better. After the three-winged tigers gathered around the fire, Su Zheng skewered the meat on a branch and flipped it over the fire to bake. Three-winged tigers used to be a bit afraid of fire, but after Su Zheng baked them multiple times, he also learned how to maintain a suitable distance from the fire, so that he could enjoy it without burning his own fur. Slowly flipping the barbecue grill in his hand, Su Zheng calmly watched as the meat began to shrink, change color, and bubble. Drops of fat were baked out, flowing over the surface of the meat and dripping into the fire, making a joyful hissing sound. As a slight oil smoke emanated, a primitive fragrance began to emanate. With further roasting, the originally bright red flesh began to darken in color, and gradually lighten, gradually turning into a deep golden yellow with an oily luster. The tempting aroma became even stronger, and the three-winged tigers couldn't help but drool uncontrollably. The sound of swallowing couldn't be suppressed from their throats. Su Zheng chuckled to himself, but remained silent as he slowly flipped through the almost half-cooked pieces of meat in his hand. It's hard to imagine that as a reincarnated first-generation intelligent brain in the Star Alliance, one would have such excellent cooking skills. In fact, this is all thanks to the fifth batch of nurses arranged to take care of his body, such as the pretty little nurse who gave him the last leg. This little girl has no other hobbies, she just likes to cook and eat. Moreover, the little girl has a passionate nature and is afraid that Su Zheng, who cannot speak or move, will feel lonely. She tries to plead with Su Zheng to find various cooking methods online, hoping that Su Zheng will not have time to be sentimental about his dying body. Thanks to this enthusiastic and kind little girl, Su Zheng really didn't have any extra time to feel sad. He kept listening to the little girl chattering in his ear about the methods of making various foods, combined with the recipes he helped the little girl find. In the end, before the little girl knew much, Su Zheng himself became a theoretical master chef. After arriving in this foreign world, I turned theory into practice, and after several experiments, my strength skyrocketed, truly becoming a generation of culinary masters. In a moment of rapid thought, the meat has reached 6 ripe. Looking at the eager expression of the 3-winged tigers, Su Zheng smiled and said, "It's almost done, Lulu. Go help me get the stone knife over here." Lulu rushed over and quickly returned with a stone knife. After multiple exercises, its tiger claws are much more flexible. A stone knife, as the name suggests, is a blade made by grinding stones. The reason for this is that Su Zheng's heavenly way technique has far reached the 10th level of elemental transformation, and there are no available resources to make iron tools. He can only return to primitive life and grind stones to use as knives. In fact, when I think about it, the first generation of intelligent brains that easily and effortlessly sailed through the internet to conquer the starry sky actually fell to the point where they had to use stone knives to cut, which was quite pitiful. Volume I Small Mount Taishan Mountain in the Exotic Forest 08. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Zheng took the stone knife and cut several grooves along the muscle texture of the meat. I reached into the void and picked up several seasonings from my personal space. The first seasoning is something that looks like tree bark. Its actual taste is indeed very similar to a spice called bark. Su Zheng ground it into powder with stones and evenly sprinkled it on the surface of the grilled meat. The second type is the root tuber of a herbaceous plant, which is as spicy as garlic and not as fragrant as garlic, and can barely replace garlic. Su Zheng pounded it into sweat and dripped it over the grilled meat. After these 2 processes, the grilled meat becomes more fragrant, with the meat aroma and seasoning flavor directly reaching the nose. The 3-winged tigers are a bit out of control. But they knew there was another process, so they all endured it. I saw Su Zheng take out a few more fruits, squeeze out juice, and also pour it on the barbecue. When the juice of the fruit comes into contact with the flesh, it immediately makes a sizzling sound, and the steam rises. Now, the grilled meat is even more fragrant, with a texture close to 70% mature and a deep golden color that turns into a brilliant golden color, tempting people's appetite. With a loud cheer, he reached out and wanted to grab a piece. "Wait a minute," Su Zheng said with a smile as he took out 2 more things. "Let's try different things today." Lulu withdrew his paws somewhat resentfully and looked at Su Zheng in confusion. Su Zheng smiled mysteriously, holding 2 things in his open palm. "I have seen 2 things before, one is the dried mushroom that Su Zheng picked and dried a few days ago, and the other is the seed-shaped fruit that he just picked today. Crush the dried mushrooms in the palm of your hand, finally twist them into powder with your fingers, and sprinkle them on the meat." This is a seasoning that Su Zheng suddenly came up with. There is no salt in this forest. The light roasted meat has been eaten for a long time, and the 3-winged tigers don't think it's much. The raw meat they used to eat didn't have any salt taste, so they don't think there's anything wrong. However, Su Zheng was not used to it. With a quick thought, he thought of delicious mushrooms and used them instead of salt, which should have a unique flavor. Next, sprinkle the cumin seeds directly on the grilled meat. If cumin is dried and turned into powder, the taste may be better. But now that the cumin seeds have just been picked, each one is still very plump. It may take a few days to make dry cumin, so Su Zheng sprinkled it directly, allowing the cumin seeds to be fully coated with fat from the meat, and rotated the branches in his hand for the final roasting. After putting these 2 things on, under the heating of the flame, the meat has reached 80% maturity. With Su Zheng's rotation, the flavors of several seasonings have fully penetrated into the meat chunks. Through the flames of barbecue, especially with the addition of cumin, a unique and rich aroma emanates, stimulating the appetite of the three tigers. I already knew how good Su Zheng's craftsmanship was. But this time the barbecue was noticeably more fragrant, reaching the peak of the expectations of the three-winged tigers. "All right." Su Zheng cheered and took off the branches, allowing the three-winged tigers to each go and use them. Lulu was so excited that he couldn't stop making a rustling sound from his throat. He grabbed a piece of it and didn't hesitate to bite it. The meat was very hot, and it was so hot that it kept tossing and tossing left and right, swapping the grilled meat between its two paws. The chewing mouth was also so hot that it couldn't help but make a hissing and exhaling sound. However, it did not affect the chewing speed at all. The same goes for Ihu Dad and Ihu Nyang. Although they don't eat as badly as Lulu, their eating speed is only too fast. This taste is really great. It tastes better than all the things I've eaten before combined. The meat is still so smooth and chewy, with a strong and chewy texture but not a smooth texture. With each bite, there is a strange strong fragrance between the lips and teeth, and the more you chew, the more delicious it becomes, giving rise to a contradictory mentality of eager to swallow but reluctant to chew more. Unlike what I used to eat, this time the barbecue has a more fragrant aroma, and at the same time, there seems to be an additional flavor in the meat, which has a poor aftertaste and gives people a feeling of wanting to swallow their tongue. Su Zheng had just picked up the first piece when the three-winged tigers had already taken down the first piece with lightning speed and were launching a second round of attack. No need to try, seeing the satisfied expression of the three-winged tigers, Su Zheng already knew how successful the barbecue was this time. Smiling and shaking his head, Su Zheng slowly nibbled on the meat in his hand, thinking to himself that if there were salt, sugar, vinegar, dried chili peppers, fresh chili peppers, Sichuan peppers, pepper, small ground sesame oil, soybean powder, peanut residue, celery, sweet sauce, a little yellow wine or red wine, and so on in his hand, then these three-winged tigers would eat even more crazy. Watching the three-winged tigers eat contentedly, Su Zheng himself felt very satisfied. It was already late at night when the three tigers were content to nibble on the grilled meat. A golden and bright moon, as well as an orange-red moon, rose to the sky. The blazing flames were reflected on Su Zheng's face, as well as on the faces of the three-winged tigers chewing with a satisfied expression, indescribably vivid and interesting. Su Zheng nibbled on the grilled meat in his hand, stretching his feet under Lulu's belly and using his toes to pluck its soft fur, suddenly feeling an extremely happy feeling in his heart. In his past life, Su Zheng was a genius in the sky. At the age of 10, he graduated from the Central Star Military School with excellent grades, bearing the aura of a young talent. At the age of 12, he reached the 10th level of the Heavenly Way technique, which shocked the entire Interstellar Alliance. Then, after 147 years, he led the entire Interstellar Alliance to repel alien invasions and became the first person to achieve remarkable success in the entire Interstellar Alliance. His achievements are unmatched by anyone in the Interstellar Alliance. But Su Zheng never felt happy. Even after the Star Wars ended, he had no joy of victory at all. One of the reasons why half human, half robot, not human, not ghost is alive is one of them. Another more important reason is that it seems that every person in the Star Alliance has countless relationships with themselves, and these complex relationships weave a fine and dense network. And he is a small insect entangled and struggling in the net, unable to move. Every minute and every second, Su Zheng feels responsibility. His responsibility is to make everyone happy and joyful. Every minute and every second, he felt a heavy burden on his shoulders. First, he had to fight off powerful enemies in the outer space by tens of millions, and then how to rebuild his home in the war-torn star realm. Every moment, Su Zheng always thinks about how to make others happy, but he has long forgotten how to find his own happy life. Su Zheng has never complained about this. From the depths of his heart, he felt remorseful. He loves the people of the Star Alliance and hopes they can be happy and happy. Even if he sacrifices his happy life, Su Zheng still thinks it's worth it. Lying on the hospital bed and connected to various connections, Su Jing did not feel the satisfaction he once thought he would have after the Star Alliance stood firm in the midst of war for 147 years. He once believed that a good man should have aspirations in all directions. As a man, he should stand tall and open up a career, which is what a man should do. But now it's just a matter of the environment, sacrificing oneself to achieve the goal of benefiting all the people in the world, and it's just a change of direction. It's still a lifelong goal that I want to achieve. But when the day of victory arrived and Su Zheng was recognized as the greatest and most accomplished person by the entire Interstellar Alliance, it turned out that this was not what he wanted. Lying on the hospital bed, whenever there was a little leisure, there was always a small voice in my heart, clamoring to let Su Zheng search for his happy life. Living without birth or death in the past life is not called experiencing life. Although admired by the people and adorned with a series of dazzling titles, none of these were what Su Zheng wanted. Life is about experiencing everything, singing as you please, speaking as you please, finding someone to love and spending your life together, experiencing everything that has never been experienced before, experiencing feelings that have never been experienced before. You don't need to have any goals or aspirations, just let go of your body and mind to embrace every new thing. This is a happy life. Su Zheng, who lived in his past life, had already made a resolute decision to contribute everything to the Interstellar Alliance, and his dream of finding his own happy life had already been restrained in the cradle. By the end of Star Wars, Su Zheng had become a half-dead person, and his dream of finding a happy life could not even be remembered by himself. What Su Zheng didn't expect was that, in the dark, something powerful was taking care of his life, giving him a chance to be reborn in a healthy and strong body, allowing him to start all over again. This makes everything come alive again, as if everything can be started over again, realizing the dream of experiencing a happy life. For example, now, even wearing a leaf apron, holding a piece of meat and 3 winged tigers together, Su Zheng can feel the existence of happiness, as if it is at hand and easily accessible. At this moment, Su Zheng made a decision that he must go out of the forest and take a look. See different geographical landscapes, see different cultural histories, travel around the world, feel what you have never felt before, experience what you have never experienced before, and see what you have never seen before. Once reborn, do not waste it in vain. In this life, act freely and become a new person. Do not seek fame and fortune for generations, but only live an ordinary, simple, and happy life. The old man Su Zheng from his past life let him go with the wind, while the young man Su Zheng from this life will start all over again, forget his past life experiences, and start all over again from scratch. Looking at the barbecue in his hand, Su Zheng burst out laughing and took a hard bite before standing up and shouting, "I want to walk out of the forest. I want to live again. I want to go find my happy life."